Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Not much. I'm excited. It's Friday, and we get a preseason game, which, normally we don't get Cowboys football on a Friday. That's a very rare occasion. So we should even if it's only kind of pseudo Cowboys football, we should take a second to appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm all fired up. I got to watch my Steelers win last night, and they got to watch the Eagles lose. It's going to be a great weekend, Landon.
It really is. It really is.
All right, so let's talk about some guys that we're interested in watching here in Game 2. Cowboys will play against the Arizona Cardinals. No Dak Prescott, no Amari Cooper, no DeMarcus Lawrence. I've just got a feeling in general, Landon, it's going to be a lot of the same guys that we saw last week, maybe for a series or two more. But let's talk about some of the guys you're most interested in seeing.
Well, I mean, I'd love to see more of the same. I'm really interested in looking at the cornerback some more. I mean, I think that's kind of the key spot. Right? Yeah, where we really just kind of need to see what we've got in some of these guys. They're going to play a lot, all these guys. I mean, maybe Diggs kind of gets pulled at a certain point. But I would imagine plays. I mean, that's a good question. I imagine that they may let him play a series. Did he play?
He didn't play at all last game.
He didn't play at all. So yeah,
Anthony Brown and Kelvin Joseph who started on the outside.
Maybe they get him in some work next week, but maybe they get him a couple snaps in here this week. But either way, it's more about the down roster guys. The Josephs, the Wrights, candidates more. And even Brown and Lewis, just to kind of see where they are at this point. So I think that's really kind of a big spot where I want to see. I expect to see a lot more of Garrett Gilbert. I just kind of want to see what that produces and how he looks kind of guiding the offense. Probably for what I assume would be closer to a half, I would think, right?
I think so, but I'm at the point, like, why not just let Garrett Gilbert play every snap? Honestly, like, why not?
If Cooper Rush is not playing, which it doesn't sound like he is, then that might be something worth considering.
Or at least 3 quarters, because, listen, I love Ben DiNucci, but he's not making this team. Like, he's just not, right? And they need to have Garrett Gilbert ready in case Dak's not ready for whatever reason. I'm not saying the shoulder is an issue because it's not an issue. But if Garrett Gilbert's going to be the backup, he's just a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience. So why not let him play the entire first half or 3 quarters?
Well, kind of going back to what we were talking about, it's even more points back to the reasons that they weren't rushing Dak back, is that they need Garrett Gilbert to take some snaps to kind of get ready. And they knew Dak wasn't going to be playing in this game anyway. So I don't disagree with you. I mean, especially since the other option has been DiNucci for longer than a half.
I can only watch about 2 or 3 drives and then I'm out.
So, I think that that's not, a terrible idea. And like I said, I'm excited to see him just because I think he needs the reps, and I think it's going to be good for this team to kind of see where he's at. It's definitely. I mean, I think the thing that we all need to kind of remember, the kind of pitfall of us all observing this, is that even though he's the backup quarterback in a regular season game, if Garrett Gilbert, God forbid, were to have to come into the game, he would be with the rest of the ones. He'd be throwing the football to Amari Cooper. He'd be throwing the football to CDM. In this game, that may not be the case for a large portions of where he's playing. So
but that's okay. That's okay.
Totally. We still need to see him either way.
I want to see Garrett Gilbert make plays when everything's not perfect around him, because we saw it last week against the Steelers, right? Like, when he was protected well, he was fine. But once the protection got a little shaky, he kind of held the ball longer than he needed to, and that's where the problems happen. I want to see him speed things up. I want to see him play in chaos, because I think those are the things that he needs to improve to become one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. And I think he can do it. I really do.
Red zone. That's
yes.
I mean, I just want to see, because that's where I think he really needs to speed things. His processor up in red zone, where the space is compressed, the formations are tighter, and the zone drops are easier for them because there's less space to cover. So I think that's really where I'd like to see more improvement in his processor speed up.
I want to go back to cornerbacks, the group that you mentioned first. Again, if we see Trevon Diggs, I'm guessing it's for a series or two at most. They're not going to play him a lot. Kelvin Joseph was okay last week. I think he's somebody that I would like to see more of. I think he needs as many snaps as possible. A couple guys just further down the roster, like Reggie Robinson. He actually made a couple of nice plays last week. I still think he's on the outside looking in, but it was nice to see him at least drive on the football a couple of times, have a forced fumble. He's somebody that I think needs to have another good preseason game to at least make it a conversation at the back end of the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, if you would have asked me a week and a half ago if I thought Robinson was going to make the team, I would say that there was almost no chance. I mean, he just hasn't.
There probably is not, though, right?
Yeah, I think he's shown out a little bit more. I think he's shown us a little bit more. He's shown up in some of these games a little bit more, and I think he forced a fumble at some point, whether it was in the Rams practice or in the game. But so I think that he needs to do more of that if he's going to try to make any kind of push to try to make this final roster. He's also going to need to, and again, not to harp on this too much, but special teams. He needs to make a showing on special teams if he wants to kind of make himself useful enough to make this team. The question is, how much is he doing on special teams and how well is he doing on them? I would definitely start paying attention there.
Not great. Do you know on the long punt return that the Steelers had last week, do you know whose fault that was?
Yeah. Did see that.
Reggie Robinson. He did not do anything as a gunner.
And honestly, this is kind of what we heard a little bit of last year, right?
Yep.
As to why he wasn't making it onto the field a lot is because you can't really roster the guy if he can't play special teams. And
you can't roster a fifth corner that doesn't do anything on special teams. It's just you can't do it. He needs to get a lot better in that area quickly if he wants to make the 53 this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk more about the defense and those guys just a second. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Built Bar, the absolute best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. I don't know if you saw Landon, but
that was so awesome, man. Yes, please tell the crowd.
Yeah, so Built Bar is are they sponsoring? Is that the right word? They're paying some walk-on students. Is it in Utah?
It's BYU, I think.
BYU, that's what. Yes,
yeah.
36 walk-on students they are sponsoring, which is just absolutely incredible. You have to go check out the video. It's pretty amazing. But
it's awesome.
What's also amazing? How about that segue? Are their protein bars? I mean, I have a coconut almond one every single day. A toffee almond is also one of my favorites. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next box at BuiltBar.com. All right, I want to mention some other guys that we didn't see last week, Landon, in the preseason that I think are going to play in this game. And let's start with our friend John Owning, his guy, Bradley and I.
John Owning's playing in the game?
Yeah, well, they might need him. Our defensive end sucks.
Honestly,
it's Bradley and I. Sounds like he missed a lot of time with an injury. He comes back in his first practice and he creates a pressure on Tyron Smith. Now, who knows if Tyron was just being nice on that play or not. But Bradley and I mean, after Terrell Basham, there's not a lot of depth at defensive end. If he can have a strong preseason over the next couple of weeks, I think he could find himself in the rotation. What are you expecting from Anai?
Yeah, I don't think he can overtake Armstrong or
Basham.
Basham, yeah. But I do think that you're right that if he can kind of make a strong push here, clearly they recognize that he has pass rush value. The question is, what's his role on this team, when he's not rushing the passer, because that, ultimately he's not like got to get him on the field pass rusher. He's usable pass rusher, right?
Oh, so John is going to hate you so much for this right now.
Well, usable pass rusher in the face of DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory is pretty good. So
yeah, I'll take it.
My point being is that you're not taking Randy Gregory or DeMarcus Lawrence off the field to rush Bradley and I guess is where I'm going.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, then he's basically just a rotational defensive end. And if that's what your job is, you have to be more than just a pass rusher.
I agree.
Because they aren't just going to deploy you in pass rushing situations, because they're going to want Micah Parsons and Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence doing that stuff. So he had to get better at special teams over the last year. It sounds like he has. Like, it sounds like the coaches, from what
seems like he put some work in there. Yep,
he put in some work, and he has a valuable body type if he can get the athleticism to kind of run down on some of those punts. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of long speed, which is kind of a downside for his special teams value, but not for his playing value. So I think he needs to continue to show out as a pass rusher. I think he needs to show a little bit more in other areas of his game, and like I said, making some special teams plays would definitely, really boost his chances for making this roster.
Yeah, he's somebody that we really haven't seen at all. I think he played like 4 snaps last year during the regular season. It'd be nice to see him play 20, 25 snaps in this game. I'm hoping the Cowboys allow him to play despite not having a lot of practice time, but that's somebody to keep an eye on in this game if he does suit up. The next guy I had written down, Landon, is Nick Ralston, the fullback. That you're going to be very upset with it, when they cut him in 3 weeks. So that's the only reason I have him on my list.
I had all my eggs invested in Alana Lua, so I'm already heartbroken. I'm not going to pretend like they're just going to plug and play Ralston. I mean, look, part of the reason that's unfortunate with Alana Lua is that I think that position is valuable when you can kind of fill that triangle role
when you have the right player, right?
Yes, yeah, of special teams guy, fullback who can also play some halfback if you need him to, right? And
maybe can fill in as the H backer if you need him, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I don't know that Ralston, or maybe he can. Maybe we'll see that with Ralston, and he'll prove that he can. But I'm not necessarily advocating for needing to keep a fullback, on the roster. I think you're going to have somebody to fill that role. If you don't have a fullback, you're going to need to have a tight end doing that, because there's just formations that require that. But I think that doesn't necessarily require, that role does not require a fullback specific player to be on this team in order for it to get fulfilled.
So in my preseason, kind of roster projections, I just kind of figured 7 running backs / tight ends together, right? And how they decide to mix up the numbers is kind of, up to them, right? Whether they go 4 tight ends and 3 backs, 4 backs and 3 tight ends. I honestly don't know what the answer is, because if we have no fullback, that means you're probably going to keep 4 tight ends, but do they have 4 tight ends they feel good about? Because I don't know Jeremy Sprinkle has shown us enough to warrant a roster spot. Or do you go out and try to find somebody else to fill that 4th tight end blocking spot? I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do there.
Blocking tight end is a position that is notoriously available at cut down times.
Yes.
So I don't think that you're going to be left high and dry when cut down time comes, if you don't like what you've got. Now, I totally agree with your thought process here, that like a 7 between running back and tight ends, that seems like a very good number. But I think that 7 is going to be specifically dictated. The makeup of that 7 will be dictated by the talent between the 2 positions, right? Like if you had Alana Lua, it was probably going to be a 4th running back and 3 tight ends.
That's
right?
exactly what I'm saying. So now I don't know now that your fullback is hurt. Right?
Exactly. So now it throws that into limbo a little bit more. Now it's like, well, is Ralston better than Sprinkle, or either of them better than blocking tight end X, who will be cut by Denver?
Yeah, I mean, would not be shocking if somebody like Blake Bell gets cut by the Chiefs as their 4th tight end right now. Like, if they just decide to release him, maybe that's somebody you bring back to fill that role. I don't know, but I would not be surprised at all if the Cowboys are on the mark, looking for that guy that can fill, kind of that triangle, right? Of, hey, can you play special teams? Can you be an H-back? Can you be a move tight end? Can you do all these things and fill all these different hats on game day? Would not be surprised if the Cowboys are looking for that player.
I'd love Blake Bell back. If he got cut, if he's available, sign him up. Let's go.
James Hanna. I wish we still had James Hanna. That was like the perfect guy to do all those roles, right?
Yeah, he really was. I mean, a guy who's a very good blocker at the tight end position, who could run a legit 4-4.
Who could also play special teams. Like, that's the perfect tight end 3, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
All right, I want to talk about the offensive line, because I think that's a spot that we need to see a lot of. Ty Nsekhe, we argued about this on Twitter a couple of days ago. I don't think he played particularly well. I think he looked kind of old out there. I want to see what he looks like after, basically getting back into the swing of things. Does he look better?
Swing
Yeah, yes.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Brandon Knight was not good last week.
No.
I was going to call you this week and ask you what happens if Brandon Knight doesn't make this roster. Does that mean you have to change your avatar on Twitter?
Absolutely not. My face is on that. But it's just the jersey. It's the jersey. It's important.
And then center, right? Like,
yeah,
Connor Williams is clearly a guard and not a center, at least in my opinion. It seems like his play really dropped when he went to center. Are they going to continue to experiment with this, moving McGovern out to left guard and Williams at center? I don't know, but I'm curious just to see how the offensive line plays out this one.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just continued forward with the Connor Williams as your backup center situation. I think he's gotten better in the weeks that we've seen. And the fact that he could get that much better in 2 weeks of doing it means to me that he can probably get good enough to feel somewhat comfortable. I don't think his blocking is poor. I think he knows the assignments.
The snaps are bad.
The snaps are bad, but he can work on that and he'll fix it. Like I really do believe that.
I thought that about Joe Looney as well. They never got better.
But Joe Looney also was, remained our backup center for the last 3 years. So it's, it is what it is.
It's fair. It's fair.
I think going back to Ty and Secchi, my argument against what you were saying there, and I think this is where we should be careful, is that I think there were times he didn't look good, but I don't think when he looked bad, it was because he looked old. I think he is
old to move, though. That's my problem.
But see, that's where I guess what I was getting at. I think he's actually was moving okay. He was getting out there. He got beat on a spin move back inside. It wasn't like he couldn't get out there. In fact, he got too far out there and then got beat by a lean and spin move. So, and I think he had a couple other reps. Look, PFF put him at like 5 hurries. And look, I went back and watched all 7 snaps 10 times at least. And I didn't have all 22 like probably they did, but I really, really have a hard time attributing all of that. So I'm not trying to promote Ty and Sec. This would be a big game
to see what he looks like.
Exactly. That's where I'm at. Let's continue to hold out a little bit because you're right in the sense he is old. So let's give him a couple snaps before we completely wash him. Because otherwise, honestly, again, not to bust out chasing the dragon, but you could really get into chasing the dragon on a swing tackle. And if you cut this guy and then you hope that Terrence Steele could do it, or you try to go out and see if you can get one of these guys in the market. Maybe they're expensive and maybe they're just as bad and they haven't been in training camp. So I think that there is something to, hey, let's just give this guy a little bit more space. If it doesn't work out, those other guys will still likely be available if we wanted to get one before or after cut down time, honestly.
Do we think Tyron Smith and Zach Martin play in this game?
I don't know.
Would you play them in this game?
I might play Zach. I don't think I would play Tyron.
Tyron does not need to play in this game.
And Zach doesn't necessarily need to play either, but I bet he'd want to.
I bet he'd like to get a drive, and just to hit somebody. Tyron, I'm good leaving out until next week. I want as little as exposure for Tyron as possible.
He's been nice and healthy. Let's keep it that way.
Let's keep it that way.
There's no reason to waste him until week 1.
All right, let's take one more quick break so I can tell you guys about BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all of the action on BetOnline. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Elena, before we go, just a couple more players that you're curious to watch. We didn't mention Micah Parsons. He was very eager to play more snaps last week. I think the Cowboys will oblige him a little bit more this week, right? I think we'll see him play 3 drives, maybe. Yeah. Right? He's got a lot he's got to do. He's got to learn a lot of different positions. I think the Cowboys would like to expand that a little bit more. Jabril Cox, I thought he got better as the game went on. Somebody that I'm interested in seeing more snaps of. Anybody else you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would like to see more of the tackles. They played a ton on defensive tackles. They played a ton on in that Pittsburgh game.
Ike Osa played like 75% of the snaps in that game.
I think Bahana played something close to that too. Honestly.
Oh my gosh!
So I'd like to see some more, honestly, because they're going to play a ton in the regular season.
Yep.
I just like to see more of what we've got and more, experience for them against these guys. I mean, look, these guys again, they're not going to be the starters for Arizona this year. I mean, we don't even know who's playing for them, but I think any live snaps while playing in your defense, it can give you kind of at least that stepping stone to the real thing once the real thing comes on September 9th.
I agree. I'm really interested to see Odigizua. I thought he played pretty well against the Steelers. He made a couple of really nice splash plays.
He got tired, it looked like, at the end. And I think it's because they played 70 snaps, but I think that it looked like they kind of were tailing off a little bit at the end, which is, it's good because honestly, like, you need to see kind of what these guys' game stamina is. And none, I don't think there's going to be a game in the regular season, hopefully not, where Odigizua is playing 60 snaps in a game. Like that's not even what we're trying to get him to do. So I thought it was good for him to get all that work and Bahana too, just because obviously the practice is important, but also just to kind of for the team to get an idea of, okay, where's the top end of his effectiveness snap count wise? That's a good thing to learn pre-week one when you're in the fourth quarter and you need to win the game and you've got a guy in there who's too winded and you're like, well, I should have known, then put him in.
I think the front seven and actually probably the front six in this game are going to be really interesting because Arizona runs almost predominantly 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. Actually, they run more 4 wide receiver sets than they do 3 receiver sets. So it's going to be a lot of light boxes. I'm curious to see like how does Bohanna and Odigizua and Carlos Watkins and Brent Urban hold up? How do the linebackers do staying disciplined and making tackles when it's, 6 blockers on 6 guys up front and the quarterback can run a little bit?
Parsons may go nuts, man. Parsons may go nuts.
Oh.
Like this may be just perfect for him because all he has is room to run and targets to hit. It's like, I mean, this might be a really good game for him to shine in.
And it sounds like from everything, I tried to look at the Cardinals stuff, going into this game just to see like who's going to play and stuff. It sounds like Colt McCoy is going to play most of this game for Arizona, which is good for Dallas. Like I'd rather play against a competent quarterback, right? At least it gives us a little bit of a barometer to see how some of these guys are doing. Because I don't know if you were watching some of the games on Thursday night, but my gosh, the quarterback play around the NFL is just awful. So even somebody like Colt McCoy playing 2 quarters against this Cowboys defense, I think will be beneficial.
That Jalen Hurts guy was just, I think you're right. It's a good point. And it's really part of the problem with training camp, with preseason in general, is that sometimes it's really hard to tell if you're getting good reps, because the opponent's, depth may not be good or your depth may not be good. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying about Garrett Gilbert. It's hard to judge a guy sometimes on his performance when he's surrounded by guys who probably, shouldn't even be on the field with him. And he's Garrett Gilbert, so it's like, it's kind of tough to measure that and properly calibrate the player's performance just simply based on who he's surrounded by. So, but I think that, kind of going back to what we were saying, these young guys, they need all the snaps they can get against whoever, just to kind of, and again, we've heard the coaches talk about this. A lot of this is not even, it's extremely situational football. There are times when they're going to call defenses and plays literally just to watch a certain player do a certain job so that they
would never run against a regular offense, right? It doesn't even sometimes make sense to run it against this offense.
The 4th and 15 that they ran or whatever, stuff like that. It's like they're doing that to test out specific scenarios in a controlled environment as close as they got to. It's like a laboratory for them. So let's all keep that in mind when we're viewing this. There's very, very much evaluation going on in these games more than a drive to win the game.
All I know is if the Cowboys don't win, I'm coming on here doing a YouTube live and you're going to panic about the Cowboys team.
It's going to be hilarious because I'm pretty sure that you're going to be on medications of all kinds because of your surgery, so you will be completely loopy and ranting probably with like a sock on your head or something.
Yeah,
like
we're all getting MRIs and operations done. So it's just the trend here around Dallas. So don't worry. We'll be okay. I promise. I'll send out a cryptic tweet.
Don't worry. He gets to get in the second MRI, guys, but don't worry. Don't worry.
That is it for today's show. That's how we're ending this podcast. Make sure you guys are following Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. We'll be back on Monday to break down the preseason game, to talk about the winners and losers. Again, you can get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you next time.